Welcome to another edition of Math, Music, and More. In this episode, we're going to be focusing on the more, and in particular, wine. And not just wine, but again, in particular, the varietal of Chardonnay. And why do I want to focus on Chardonnay? One, it's an incredibly prevalent grape. You can find it anywhere in any wine store. And it's also incredibly expressive and can show just how much the wines can vary based on terroir and based on climate. So I wanted to talk about some of those climates and some of those resulting wines and how different they are in characteristics, and therefore highlight for you some of the wines that I think are just out of this world. For this discussion, I'm going to entirely focus on the region of Burgundy. Burgundy has a number of regions that are all interconnected into one giant mass, starting with Côte Noire, where you actually do the Pinot Noirs, all the way down to Beaujolais. But then there's also a little bit of an island in France that technically also belongs to Burgundy. That's to the northwest of all those regions, and that's of course the region of Chablis. Chablis is the coldest of all of Burgundy, and also they have some very, very fascinating soil there. I think it's called Carmadigian clay or something like that. It's old limestone clay-like soil that has a lot of marine fossils in it. And when you get wines from Chablis, especially the top ones, you get wines that are incredibly austere and incredibly rich in minerals and almost metallic. They're also much more acidic, and Chardonnay in particular has an incredibly prevalent malic acid component as opposed to a tartaric acid, which you often find in wines like a Chenin Blanc or Riesling, which is much softer and easier on the digestive system too, by the way. But nevertheless, the Chablis are outstanding. If you want to go to the complete opposite extreme, there are Chardonnays that are incredibly ripe and voluptuous that just explode with aromas and bouquets of stone fruit. Stone fruit is anything that has like a single pit, right? Like an apricot or something like that, or a peach. And my favorites there is in the region of Maconnais, which is just shortly above Beaujolais, which is almost entirely Chardonnay. And in Maconnais, there's a specific producer by the name of Fuisse. And as the name implies, it's within the Appellation Contrôlée sub-region, sub-district, or however you would call it, of Pouilly-Fuisse. So instead of getting a village Pouilly-Fuisse wine, you would get a Chateau Fuisse, which again refers to the producer. There are many different wines that they make out of Chardonnay. They're all outstanding. Les Brûlés is probably my favorite. I hope that's okay pronunciation-wise. It's kind of like crème brûlée, which means, burnt or torched or whatever brûlée means. I forgot all my French, so my apologies. But that's my personal favorite. So unbelievably ripe. But there is one region that lies in between. It's in Côte de Beaune, which is just south of Côte-de-Nuit. Côte-de-Nuit again focuses almost entirely on Pinot Noir. In Côte de Beaune, it's much more driven by Chardonnay, although there's some exceptions. And of course, there is the fabled village and vineyards of Le Montrachet. And Montrachet is, of course, outstanding, but it's also incredibly expensive and can be great and can be so-so. However, there's a village immediately on the side of Montrachet called Meursault. Meursault, Meursault. And they have a couple of Premier Cru vineyards, not Grand Cru like Le Montrachet, but they do have several, I think 4, if I remember correctly, Premier Cru vineyards. And my 2 favorites are Les Perrières and Les Charmes. And it's outstanding because you get that aristocratic minerality of a Chablis, but it's much more ripe and with complexity of aromas and of taste, which reminds you more of the Chateau Fuisse, although it's not nearly as voluptuous and almost sweet in its bouquet, although there's no real residual sugar in it. So it makes for a fantastically complex eating wine, Meursault, Perrier, or Les Charmes, and it's not as expensive as the Montrachet, which is always a nice thing to find, so I can't recommend it highly enough. If you are a fan of Chardonnay, please check out the village of Meursault, and if you're willing to do it, invest in some of the Premier Cru. Other than a Grüne Veltliner, which is a very unknown grape, and there's a very specific producer in the Wachau that I love, it is one of my 2 favorite white wines to match in the culinary arts. Anyway, hope you find that helpful and interesting. If any of you go out and try one of these Meursault, leave me a comment, let me know how it went, because again, I think it's just a gift, this type of wine. Enjoy, and until next time, take care.